Nothing belongs to you. Insights from Buddhism. Why do we feel like we own things? We spend our lives building a world we believe belongs to us. Not just the things we own, our house, our clothes, our money, but even our memories, our thoughts, and our sense of identity. We cling tightly to these things, convinced they are part of who we are. But what if this entire idea is mistaken? What if nothing, not even the person you believe yourself to be, can truly be possessed? Think about your own body. You didn't choose its shape, its height, or the way it ages. No matter how much you care for it, it changes in ways you can't control. If this body is truly yours, why won't it simply obey you? Why can't you command it to stay strong, healthy, and young forever? The truth is, no part of life is truly ours. Even our thoughts arise and vanish on their own. Have you ever tried to sit quietly and watch your mind? Thoughts appear without warning, jumping from one idea to another. Some are pleasant, some unpleasant, yet none of them wait for your permission to arrive. If your own mind behaves this way, how much control do you really have? Despite this, we still cling. The mind latches onto things as if holding tightly will keep them safe. But the more we grip, the more fragile everything seems to become. Relationships strain under the pressure of control. Achievements lose their meaning when we fear they'll be forgotten. Even simple objects, a watch, a phone, a notebook, can stir anxiety if we believe they define us. This clinging isn't just a habit. It's wired into our brain. Studies show that when we feel ownership over something, the brain releases dopamine, a chemical that gives us a feeling of pleasure and security. That's why we become attached so easily, even to things with no real value. Losing a cheap pen you've carried for weeks can feel oddly frustrating. It's not the pen itself, it's the mind's desperate attempt to hold on. Long ago, a king proudly claimed that his vast kingdom was his alone. In response, a wise teacher bent down, picked up a grain of sand and said, "Can you take even this with you when you die?" The king had no answer. That single grain of sand shattered his illusion. No matter how much we claim to possess, nothing truly belongs to us. Still, the mind refuses to accept this. It keeps grasping, hoping that by holding tighter, we'll gain control. But this only makes us anxious, restless, and fearful. Imagine a monkey reaching into a jar filled with nuts. The monkey grabs a handful, but its fist becomes too large to pull back out. Trapped, the monkey panics. Not because the jar is locked, but because it refuses to let go. Our minds behave the same way. We cling to things, people, memories, even ideas about ourselves, believing that letting go would mean losing something important. But in truth, this grasping is what keeps us stuck. We don't see this clearly because we mistake attachment for love and clinging for security. We believe that if we stop holding on, we'll lose everything. But the opposite is true. The tighter we cling, the more we suffer. This is the heart of the problem. We spend our lives desperately trying to hold on to things that are already slipping through our fingers. Nothing in this world can be owned. Not fully, not forever. The more we try to claim what isn't ours, the more anxious and dissatisfied we become. This constant grasping, this struggle for control, is the source of our unease. True calm lies not in tighter grip, but in a different way of seeing. The price of holding on. Ownership feels like security, but beneath that comfort lies something far more troubling. Fear. The more we believe we own something, the more terrified we become of losing it. Imagine someone who treasures their expensive watch. At first they feel proud and satisfied. Yet soon, that pride turns into anxiety. They check their wrist constantly. They panic if they forget where they placed it. What once brought them joy now feels like a burden. Quiet, persistent fear of loss. This fear isn't just emotional, it's physical. Neuroscience shows that losing something meaningful activates the same brain regions as physical pain. That's why losing something seemingly insignificant can feel surprisingly painful. The mind doesn't just see objects. It sees extensions of itself. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "You may control your thoughts and actions, but everything else, your possessions, your reputation, even your body, lies beyond your grasp." His words mirror the Buddha's teaching. Our suffering grows when we cling to what we cannot truly control. But clinging doesn't just affect our relationship with objects. It poisons our relationships with people. A parent, for example, may hold too tightly to their child, constantly controlling their choices out of fear for their safety. In doing so, they may stifle the child's independence, turning love into suffocation. Or consider a partner who clings possessively in a relationship, demanding constant reassurance and control. Though their intentions may stem from love, the result is often resentment, distance, and pain. The tighter we cling, the more we push others away. Not only does clinging damage our relationships, but it also limits our growth. Imagine someone who once achieved success in their career, but refuses to move forward out of fear of losing that identity. They reject new challenges because they're too attached to their past. Or consider someone who sees themselves as strong and refuses to admit vulnerability, even when they're suffering. By clinging to a fixed idea of who they are, they build a wall that traps them inside. Why do we cling like this? Because deep down, we believe that holding on will keep us safe. We convince ourselves that if we control enough, our relationships, our status, even our thoughts, we can somehow prevent loss, change, or uncertainty. But this belief is an illusion. The harder we cling, the more fragile we become. When we base our security on things that can slip through our fingers, anxiety becomes inevitable. The mind stays restless, always scanning for threats, always afraid of losing what it's desperately trying to hold. Carrying this fear is like holding a heavy bag for hours. At first, you convince yourself that you need to carry it, that without it, you won't be safe. But the longer you grip it, the more exhausted you become. When you finally set it down, the relief is immediate. That's what letting go feels like. Not loss, but release. The Buddha never taught that we should reject the world or avoid meaningful connections. Instead, he showed us that peace comes from loosening our grip, from caring deeply without trying to possess or control. Letting go means opening our hands, releasing the tension, and discovering a different kind of freedom. We don't have to cling to life to love it. In fact, the less we try to own, the more fully we can embrace what's right in front of us, with open hands and an open heart. What happens when we stop clinging? Imagine walking through a dense forest, carrying a backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents something you hold tightly: your possessions, your achievements, your relationships, even your idea of who you are. At first, the weight feels manageable, but as the path grows steeper, every step becomes harder. Your shoulders ache, your breath falters, and the world around you seems distant and dull. Finally, exhausted, you stop and set the backpack down. The moment you let go, your body feels weightless, and for the first time in hours, you notice the cool breeze, the scent of the trees, and the warmth of sunlight on your skin. The burden wasn't just the stones. It was the belief that you had to carry them. Buddhism teaches that clinging burdens us in much the same way. We cling to possessions, to status, to relationships, and even to our own identity, believing these things define who we are. Yet the more tightly we hold on, the more we suffer. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning what we love. It means learning to carry things lightly, without fear. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre noticed how easily we build our identities on possessions. We act as if our stuff is part of who we are. But this creates a fragile sense of self. When we lose our things, we can feel like we've lost a piece of ourselves. When we lose what we believe is ours, we feel as if we've lost part of ourselves. The Buddha offered a powerful alternative: to see that no possession, no achievement, and no fixed idea of me can truly define who we are. This is the heart of non-self, the understanding that our identity is not something we can own or protect. Consider the story of a wealthy merchant who once visited the Buddha. The merchant was tormented by anxiety, fearing thieves would steal his treasures. "I can't sleep," he confessed. "I can't enjoy what I have, because I'm always afraid of losing it." The Buddha replied, "Then give away what you cannot keep." The merchant misunderstood, believing the Buddha was asking him to give away his fortune. But the Buddha's teaching was deeper. Release the mental burden, the belief that these things define you. Whether the merchant gave away his wealth or not was secondary. The true key was loosening his grip on the idea that his treasures were part of himself. Letting go does not mean renouncing life or becoming indifferent. In fact, it often deepens our connections. A parent who clings tightly to their child, demanding obedience and control, suffocates the relationship. But a parent who loves without trying to possess allows their child the space to grow. And in that freedom, a deeper bond forms. The same applies to friendships, careers, and even our sense of self. Love flourishes when it's not weighed down by fear. Growth happens when we stop defending a fixed image of who we are. Even our mental struggles often come from clinging. Anxiety thrives on attachment. The mind clings to imagined outcomes, rehearsing what might go wrong. Restlessness emerges from the mind's refusal to accept the present moment, always reaching for something more. When we let go, we aren't rejecting our thoughts or feelings. We're releasing the need to control them. Like a clenched fist slowly opening, the mind softens, and peace follows. Perhaps the most powerful reminder of this truth is found in nature. A bird carries nothing, yet it moves freely across the sky. It builds a nest, yet never clings to it. When the season changes, it leaves without regret. This lightness is not indifference. It's wisdom. A deep trust that life can unfold without being grasped. In the same way, our lives become lighter when we loosen our grip. Letting go doesn't mean living without love or purpose. It means living without the constant fear of losing what was never ours to control. And in that freedom, we find something far greater than ownership. We find peace. The final truth: nothing ever belonged to you. We gather possessions, relationships, and identities, weaving them into the fabric of who we think we are. Yet, no matter how tightly we cling, all things eventually slip away. Loved ones depart, bodies age, fortunes shift. Some may despair at this, but the Buddha saw it differently. Not as a cause for fear, but as the key to lasting peace. If we cannot keep something forever, can we truly say it belongs to us? Imagine a person who rents a house. They may decorate it, furnish it, and grow attached to its walls and windows. Yet deep down, they know they must leave one day. No matter how much they love it, the house was never truly theirs. This is how life unfolds. Everything we cling to is borrowed. Our wealth, our titles, even our relationships. The Buddha, in the Dhammapada, once said, "When one sees with wisdom that all conditioned things are impermanent, one turns away from suffering." It's not that we must reject these things, but rather see them for what they are: temporary, fleeting, and never truly ours. This understanding isn't meant to leave us empty-handed. It points to a deeper kind of wealth, the freedom that comes when we stop grasping. The Buddha often encouraged the practice of generosity, dana, not just as an act of kindness, but as a powerful tool to weaken attachment. Each time we give something away, whether it's money, time, or even a kind word, we challenge the mind's habit of clinging. Generosity doesn't mean we must give up everything. It teaches us to hold things lightly, with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. But letting go is not only about physical possessions. It's about releasing the belief that our thoughts, emotions, and identity define us. The phrases, "I am this way," or "things must be like this," are the bars of a self-made cage. The Buddha taught that this self-image is just another illusion of ownership, a mental structure we build to feel secure. Yet just like our possessions, this identity is constantly shifting. The thoughts you had 5 years ago are not the same thoughts you have now. The person you believed yourself to be in childhood is not the person you are today. When we see this clearly, the mind softens. We no longer need to defend a fixed identity. Instead, we become adaptable, open, and free to respond to life as it unfolds. To practice this, the Buddha recommended contemplating impermanence, anicca. This doesn't mean brooding over loss, but noticing change as it happens. Watch the breath. Each inhale rises and falls. Notice a thought. It appears, stays briefly, and disappears. Even emotions, no matter how intense, eventually pass. By observing this constant movement, we begin to realize that nothing, not even me, is truly solid or lasting. The more we see this, the less we cling. For those who wish to test this directly, there's a simple practice worth trying. For one day, silently repeat the phrase, "This does not belong to me." When you pick up your phone, remind yourself, "This does not belong to me." When you speak to a loved one, say quietly in your mind, "This does not belong to me." When you feel anger, joy, or fear arise, observe it and whisper again, "This does not belong to me." This is not an exercise in detachment or coldness. It's a way of loosening the mind's grip. A gentle reminder that everything we experience is passing through our hands like water. At first, this practice may feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. But if you persist, something remarkable happens. A sense of lightness begins to emerge. Fear softens, anxiety loosens, and the mind discovers a space of calm it never knew was possible. The Buddha never claimed this freedom could be found overnight. It takes patience and effort. But each moment of awareness, each time we remember that nothing truly belongs to us, is a step toward peace. In the end, this truth is not a loss, but a gift. Nothing ever truly belonged to us. Not our wealth, our relationships, or even our body. And when we stop clinging, we discover something far greater. A freedom that no one can take away. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about finally seeing things as they are.